Hi, Chris. Welcome. um, First of all, I like to always start with this question because I think it's a good one. But first of all, how are you? And are you learning anything from this experience?
Yeah. I've heard a little pushback, I'd say, from the general community that like if you aren't learning something right now, that's kind of okay because it's we're all under a little extra pressure here, and I
Yeah.
think that feels about right to me. I'm not like I feel like I'm not challenging my brain a ton every day. Like somehow that feels extra hard right now, but I do feel like I can work still. I know our mutual friend Dave Rupert had a good post that explained how he was feeling, that said that he's looking for stuff that he's already really skilled at, like CSS, probably for all three of us is like something that we're pretty comfortable with. So like, I don't know, working on some CSS bugs right now feels like, I don't know, comfortable territory and
Mhm.
something we can do well at. But like learning a whole new language right now or something, I'd be like,
Yeah. And to clarify, I didn't mean like a brand new skill, but just
yeah.
really in life in general. Like I'm learning that I'm a lot more introverted than I thought I was.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So that the pain of not, I don't know, being able to go out and see as many people is like not particularly bad for you.
Not too bad. I've been doing okay, I think. I mean, I do miss hugs. I love hugs, but other than
Yeah,
that, like, I'm not like going crazy. So,
right. Yeah, me either. I mean, I'm starting to, it took a while to sink in, and I know there's a long way to go, so who knows how I'll be feeling soon, but um, not so bad. I'm also introverted and don't mind having the me time that this allows and the kind of the clear schedule going forward. And it feels okay. Oh, I am starting to be a little bit like, I want to go to a bar. Just
yeah,
not that I'm some like bar hound or something, but I wouldn't
yeah,
mind just like watching a little some dumb sports game that I don't care about and eating a hamburger, you know?
yeah. Like on the weekend, I would walk over to Cavalier, which is a restaurant nearby, and just sit at the bar, eat brunch, have my mimosas, and stare at my phone. It's not like I'm used to being that social, but like it was just an activity I would do to like decompress.
Yeah, that's
And
an introvert version of social. Yeah.
yeah. Cool. Well, we have a question from Todd. Welcome back, Todd. He's been the I think all of these so far.
Yeah.
So he asks, are there plans for anything on CodePen, like recommended pens, whether it is by staff at CodePen or user preference?
Kind of. I mean, since really day one on CodePen, we've done picked pens, and they're picked literally by hand. So everybody at CodePen has that ability, and we've invited a couple of like friends and family kind of people to do that too, and it's built right into our UI. So when we're looking at CodePen, we have a special little star icon that no one sees, and if we click the star, it's a picked pen. I think a lot of people know that, and it's just it's a way to keep like fresh, interesting things that with an editorial level of control on the homepage, and we've done that for ever, like 7 years or something. So
Awesome.
that is what a recommended pen is in a way. There's also topics on CodePen, which are at the moment hand curated. So if you go to topics and then like React or Pug or in topics, they don't have to necessarily be technologies. They're also like buttons or something. If you go to the button topic, those are also hand picked by us of like, these are great buttons. So if you're, looking for buttons for your design pattern library, it's a place to just go look,
Mhm.
for inspiration kind of stuff. So there is there's almost too much editorial control at CodePen. And as a matter of fact, I think future looking, we're looking to be a little bit more programmatic about that and be
Mhm.
like, this is kind of algorithmically the best content in particular areas. And that's coming. It's just not quite here yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in case somebody is not familiar with CodePen, do you want to break down real quick what that is?
Yeah, I mean, the heart of it is that it's a code editor in the browser. So, and there's all kinds of use cases for that. So my elevator pitch isn't super good, but it's like,
Mhm.
I don't know, let's say you just want to write a little bit of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript quickly. You don't have to install anything or use your code editor or save files locally. You just go to CodePen and click create pen. And a pen is just what we call like one of these things. That's like a chunk of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And you write it and hit save. You have to have an account to do it, but accounts are free, and most people have free accounts. And then you have it. You have a URL to this thing that you built. And you might do that because you're trying to show off something cool that you built, or you're having a problem with something and you need to debug it and you want to show somebody like, hey, look at this. This is weird. I don't understand what's happening here. Can you look at this and do it? Or I built this for, it's one little piece of a design system, and we want to talk about it with our team first and look at it here and then maybe move it over there later. Or, you know, all kinds of stuff like that. So any reason you can think of wanting to write a little front end code and save it, you can do that on CodePen. That's the point of it. I guess I'll just stop there instead of talk for 100 years. Yeah.
I find my biggest use of it is when I'm working on a design system team and I'm trying to illustrate something in code real quickly, but maybe don't want it to be, you know, like in the context of like the design systems code. Like sometimes other factors and things might be in that code that would affect what I'm trying to illustrate. So I like to just get separate from
isolation.
Yeah, sure. And just like build out the things, show it to the dev, and then they're like, oh, okay, I gotcha. Yeah,
cool.
And then Todd had a follow-up question. He said, is there also a way to turn off the notification icon in the following feature?
That's kind of a brand new thing. Have you heard of this app called App Queues? I think it's super cool. I think it's like, I'm sure everybody's seen, like when you log into some app, there's like a little beacon or something, and it's kind of like blinking, and it's like, we did a new thing. You should look at the new thing, everybody. It's an app that helps you build those. That's like 2% of what it does, but that's one of the things it does. So we've been working really hard on the following feature of CodePen, making it more interesting and making it more valuable to follow other people on CodePen and stuff. And because we did all that work, we're like, we should tell people. And when you're in that position of trying to do a little bit of product marketing for yourself, you have a couple of options. We're like, we should blog it. Heck yeah, let's blog it. Okay, 0.001% of people that use CodePen read our blog. Nobody reads our blog, you know? Or you could do it on Twitter. Let's tell people on Twitter. Great. 0.01% of people that use CodePen look at our Twitter. That's great. They're fans. Twitter's fun. Fine. But that's like that. The reach of those things sucks, you know? Here's what you really should do to tell somebody if you do something new in your app is tell them in the app, hey, we did this thing. That's going to reach a ton more people that matter. And then another way to do it is email people too. Email has incredible reach of telling people you did something in your product. So we're just trying to be better at the thing like that are better. Now it sounds kind of like Todd saw this beacon and is like annoyed by it and wants it to go away. If you're annoyed by it and want to go away, you got to click on it. So sorry about that, but that's the way it is now. Well, I'll have to add, we're new to this software, this AppQueue software, and it has all kinds of powerful stuff you can do with it. And I'll ask about that because it should be like, I don't know, maybe there'd be a time limit on it, or maybe there's a way to turn it off if anybody's ever seen it once or something, or even seen it and not clicked on it. We're still getting our footing with stuff like that. So sometimes you annoy somebody and then you're like, ooh, we annoyed too many users. Let's back off or relearn something like that. So that's what's happening there.
Cool. I like this question from Anna. Is there an underdog or misunderstood CSS property that you think people should be using more or differently, or are scared to use because they don't understand it?
Oh, that is good. I want to know Gina's answer too, though. I'm trying to now, you know, it's not funny to be on the spot thinking of CSS she specifically said property, but one selector, if I could adjust the question a little bit, that I think is really cool and maybe not used enough yet because it's, I don't know, people are just like learning about it and stuff, is that focus within. Have you seen that? Where you like, you know, you could select a div that's 2 parents up from an input just because when the input inside of all that is in focus, which I just think is cool. It gives you this opportunity to, it's almost like a parent selector in CSS. You can select a parent when the child is in a state, which is pretty new. It's usually something people assume you can't do in CSS. In this case, it's hyper limited to just things being in focus, but it opens up some Interesting possibilities, I think. You know, I saw, speaking of a property, I saw yesterday, Caret Color, just CARET dash color, which is, you can just change the color of the cursor in an input.
Oh,
Like, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but I don't know, I wouldn't say it's an underdog, but I was like, I can't believe you can do that, but okay, that's a thing.
yeah, I admit I don't use focus within yet, but now I want to play.
Well,
um,
imagine like, here's a interesting one. Like you have like a card component, and the card component has a menu in it, and like you'd want the menu to be open when like the button that opens it is in focus, but not like
mhm,
shoot, now I'm losing it. Well, I lost the plot a little bit, but the idea is that if you know something inside of it is focused, that you can kind of like take care to make sure that menu like stays open. Like, be
mhm.
cool, I know the button isn't in focus anymore, but there is something in focus within that menu and within
Yeah.
the card, so like be cool about it. uh, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that I have one for a property. I have one for value.
Oh, a
Current
value.
color, I think, is one of my
Yeah.
favorites, and I don't see it used in places where it's appropriate to use it. Like people will
Hmm.
redefine colors a lot, and it's like current color is really great.
Yeah, is it, I mean, I think of like hacks around it, like the one where you set like a SVG fill color to current
Yeah,
color. Yeah,
yeah,
that one's
exactly.
cool. And that, in that case, inherit wouldn't work, right? Because there is no parent that also sets the fill. So you're like stealing from the color property and using it for something else, like a border color.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
good
actually
one.
I find inherit in the same vein actually. Like people don't use it when they probably should be, and instead they'll redefine the color again. Yeah.
Mm.
Or it doesn't even have to be a color. It could be like a font size or whatever. Got another one from Anna. If you have a massive project with a lot of legacy content and styles, and fresh start is not an option, how do you begin to tackle developing a design system around it for future updates?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a Gina question too, really, I'm
Yeah,
afraid. This is really
yeah.
so I think, don't you think most people are in this situation? Like, how many people are green fielding
Mhm.
compared to the amount of developers working on existing websites? You know, I think most people work on existing websites.
Yeah, that's something that I've been like talking about in some of my workshops is a lot of people will talk about design systems as if you're starting from scratch and
Mm-hmm.
you know how to build it up. And I just think the reality is most people are inheriting one that already exists or they're trying to retrofit one into this legacy product. And most people aren't starting from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, but we think about this a lot. I would say at CodePen, we're just in a unique situation. It's such a small team, and I don't know, there's a lot going on. We don't have to make this about that, but we are thinking like, oh, we're going to build out some new areas of the site. This is an opportunity to do better than what we had before in terms of componentization, which is, maybe I don't think of it correctly all the time, but I think having a component library is like the important part to me of a design system. Just as somebody, like, we just have one product and it's a website and
Mhm.
that's it, you know. So having a strong set of components like is our design system, at least to me. And for example, like we don't have one for like a, I don't know, a really consistent drop down menu. It's just not a thing that we have. So if I was starting with an existing product like I am, I'd probably do some kind of audit, you know, look around and see all the different places we're doing this. And because we already kind of feel that pain, but I just want to like document the pain, be like, here's the places. And then if we're going to do this, can we build this new component and use it in all of those different places? And then when we launch it, feel good that, hey, we did it. We actually like reduced some technical debt. And so that would be like a baby little step. And then, I don't know, hopefully you do that step enough times and at the end of it, you actually did it. You actually have a real design system.
Yeah, I would also start with an audit. I feel like that's really the only way you can really fully understand the scope of what you're trying to do.
Okay, audit, high five.
Audit. So we have a question from Nick. And he's aimed this question at both of us. He said, "Is there any general advice you can offer to someone who's building out their first design system?"
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Your first one ever, huh? And so, but what's not clear there is it for is it for a site that already exists or for a site that doesn't exist? Why don't we take it just to be a site that doesn't exist? Because it seems like that's where it's going, and we already talked about sites that do exist. So, gosh, that's a good question. I wonder. It's been so long since I've done that kind of thing. Do you think in terms of components first, or do you like design a bunch of, I don't know, more robust full pages and then think about how you would, I don't know. And again, you're obviously 10 times more experienced with design systems than I do. So you tell me.
I think it's a little bit of a balance. I don't like to just try to build out all the components that I need, because usually you're going to find yourself building stuff that you don't actually need.
Mm,
So it is usually in the context of actually designing and building a page or a screen or a feature or whatever it is. And then the components that I realize are going to be reused from that, that's when I start making those into modular components. I think even like Brad Frost talks about this with atomic design. I think a lot of people assume that he's advocating for building out all the atoms and then building the molecules and then building, and going up from
mm,
there. And he has said in some of his talks that it's kind of like you kind of like find yourself flowing back and forth. Like you start with some small ones, and then as you're building out some larger ones, you might realize, oh, here's some more atoms that, it's just kind of like
mm.
you kind of zoom out and zoom back in. Like,
Yeah,
I,
and that's okay. You don't have to follow this prescriptive. Yeah.
yeah, I think it would be almost impossible to follow that like completely, because, products are always iterative anyway. And so you're going to always find
Hmm.
yourself going back and refactoring and stuff.
I think just to relate this to a slightly related technology situation, I used to like almost advocate for this idea when you're writing HTML and CSS to like look at a design and then kind of semantically write out the HTML for it. And then once you're happy with that, then go apply CSS to that. And it felt a little bit good, but it also felt, now looking back and I'm like, this is a little too prescriptive. I feel like the reality of it is that you bounce back and forth a ton when you do
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And maybe it's fine to like start with HTML or whatever, but the reality is that you're jumping all around all the time, touching different parts of it. And so
Yeah.
you're not doing a bad job if you're bouncing around. That's just reality.
Yeah. Not to like plug myself, but I am working on a book right now. And one of the concepts I talk about, thanks, is that design systems, in my opinion, are not a very linear thing. And a lot of people talk about them as if they're a linear thing. Like you're going to find yourself kind of jumping around and working on one area, jumping over to another area, and then maybe going back to that other area because new things are always going to come about. And, we're building products for customers, and the needs of those customers are always going to be changing. And so,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
yeah. um, Todd's got a question about Shop Talk. So he said he loves the redesign of the Shop Talk show site. And what was the biggest challenge with the redesign?
Oh, thanks. And by the way, it's very much a work in progress because we're still, that was kind of the spirit of it all along. It's like, let's get something in a pretty workable state and then get it out there, knowing that, like Jina just said, it's iterative. We're constantly working on it. And I think at the point that it is right now, we're like, gosh, there's so many things we wish were better and are under active work. So part of the spirit of this redesign wasn't like, let's just knock something out. We actually, it was Dan Mall's idea, and Dan said, hey, I'll be the kind of like creative director of this thing, but I'm not going to design it myself. I'm just going to like help be the glue to some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that we'll have junior developers who could use a crack at something apply to do this. Then a bunch of people applied and we picked one. It ended up being Afia Smith, who is now like not a junior designer anymore. She ended up getting a job and is now happily and gainfully employed elsewhere, but still she's still working on it, and Dan's still working on it, and Dave and I are still working on it. So it's, it's in progress. But the spirit of the design that we ended up landing on was kind of like old school. There was an early design where it was like a computer that's so old that its only color was like green, terminal letters, and you could see the lines between the letters because it's so low resolution. That was an early design that we're like, you know what, though, Shop Talk's branding isn't green, it's orange. And there was old monitors that were just like that, but they were orange instead. I think they were a little more rare or something, but that was a thing too. So we kind of went with that dark screen with orange letter look. And unfortunately, we use some additional colors too. We have white and stuff on there now too. So we've kind of lost the plot a little bit. Maybe we'll go back to all orange. I don't know. It's just hard to design with one color. My gosh, people. How do you do hovers and all that stuff? So the biggest challenge, though, as you mentioned, was there was, well, here's just one of them. There's actually a bunch of them. I wasn't prepared to think about this necessarily, but there's, imagine like an ASCII star, like a tiny little ASCII star. And you want to use it as literally a border image, but you can't like cut. So, one star up, over, down, left. The border is literally made up of ASCII stars. How do you do that so that you're never like cutting off a star, like that they space each other perfectly, or there's the right number of them perfectly for totally arbitrary content? Because on the web, you'd never want to like set a height or set a width. Things are fluid in both directions. That's just the medium that we work in.
Right.
So yeah, like it turned out there's a couple of different ways to slice it, but it was a little challenging. And the one we went with was an interesting CSS property. Actually, it's called background repeat round, I think. And if you say background repeat round, it'll say I'm gonna repeat. And so you can say background repeat X too. I'm gonna repeat horizontally as many of these images as will fit. And then, but not, I will never cut one off. If there happens to be enough space for one more, I'll add one more. If there's not enough space, I'll space them out in between just a little bit until there's enough space total for one more, and then I'll put one more.
Whoa.
So that, yeah, it's just it's not that useful all the time, but it's useful sometimes, especially in this situation. So we didn't use border image. We used this weird repeating technique.
I did not even know that was a thing. I just learned something new.
There you go.
That's awesome.
So it's not really ASCII, it's an image, unfortunately.
Wow. I'll have to like find a reason to use that. Like, I feel like there are very few use cases to need that, but that was the perfect one.
It kind of was. Yeah, worked out.
So James asked, do you think it's possible to use CSS custom properties or variables to replace Sass variables in a Sass-driven design system?
I don't know. I mean, assuming you're in a situation where you don't have to worry about browser support at all. Every browser that you work on supports CSS custom properties. I tend to think that they're just better then, because they can kind of do everything that a Sass variable can do and more. So I don't know, just use them instead sometimes. But that's a tough call, I mean, the trick with Sass is that sometimes it's more of I almost like that they have different names, right? In Sass, it's a variable, and in CSS, it's a custom property. So there's some like mental separation between them, kind of. Whereas in CSS, one of the things that's so different about them that Sass totally doesn't even try to do is let them cascade. So if you set a CSS custom property like 2 levels up, 2 levels deep, it will kind of have that value, and you could reset it in the middle. Like if the body sets color equals red, and a module sets color equals blue, and there's a paragraph tag in there like that, just like the color property would cascade down through that, the custom property does too, and it follows the cascade exactly. That's neat and useful. And Sass can't do that.
Like doing like a dark mode theme is a really good use case for custom properties. I personally prefer using Sass when I can, simply because I like to do the work before it hits the browser. But for things like theming, I think custom properties are definitely a more flexible way of doing it. So we have a question from Anna, and I would say let's make this the last question because we're already coming up on time. So Anna asks, most of us who work in front-end design or front-end and design got started using Bootstrap. What do you think is the CSS framework to watch today?
I got a text from my mom this morning. For the record, she says, do you consider Bootstrap a competitor? And I was like, I don't know. No, I guess I don't. I don't know what you're asking me exactly, or what your impressions of what Bootstrap are, but no, definitely not. So what did Anna ask? Is it we got started with Bootstrap, so then what?
So what's the framework to watch today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, still Bootstrap maybe, but the Balma is cool. I think it kind of has a fresh looking look that I like to it. So um, I like Balma, and there's a bunch of no class frameworks that I think are cool too. So if you're designing something super lo-fi and easy, and you just want to write HTML and forget about the CSS, there's a bunch of those that I think are pretty neat. MVP CSS is one of those. And the big one that like turns all this on its head, I think, that has a lot of like really super fan people is Tailwind. Have you seen Tailwind?
Yeah, that seems to
Yeah.
be getting quite a bit of traction.
But what's interesting is you don't get anything for free with Tailwind. You don't say, I want some tabs, and it gives you tabs like you do with Bootstrap with one class. Tailwind is just, I don't know, make the color red, make it display inline block, add 2 rems of padding or whatever. You have to ask for every single thing from Tailwind. But people like it because when you do those things, it tends to have some consistency. And kind of the bigger idea is then you ship no custom CSS. You write 0 lines of CSS. You're
Mhm.
only doing HTML attributes. I can't get myself into it. I've tried a couple of times. It's not, no offense. I don't care what people do. I see the point of it. I especially see the point of not having a CSS file that is misunderstood in your organization and that grows over time. And there's known problems with that I can appreciate, but I don't have those problems. And I kind of like writing CSS, so I just roll with that.
Yeah, I have explored that as well as some other frameworks that do the whole single purpose classes.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think tachyons and base are like 2 examples that come to mind.
Yeah.
The thing that I found with them, like for a personal project, I think they're like really great. But what I found from experience, like at Salesforce, when we tried to do the single purpose class thing, it put a lot of burden on design changes on the engineers. So like markup had to be changed all over the place anytime we redesigned something. And
Mm-hmm.
so I try to work with frameworks that do a balance. Like utility classes definitely have their place, but I think if the overuse of them can put a lot of burden on making things change, like easy to change and redesign in the future. Because
It's one of those things that makes me think about like whatever somebody's experience is at a particular org is what's going to inform
mhm,
what they like and don't like. That's very interesting perspective, that Salesforce experience of HTML changes being a little burdensome in the wrong place,
mhm,
you know. And my experience will largely come from the small projects I work on.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
it's hard
sure.
to say, like, one of the, I start to think, oh, I don't, what's the redesign story then? You have classes all over the HTML. Like, do you write some regex that wipes them all out so you can start clean? Or like, it seems like it's a little more difficult to start if they're sprinkled all over like that. But that's just a weird gut
Yeah,
instinct kind of thing. And I always thought maybe the story is actually reverse of what you said, not to be disagreeable, but that on a personal project, I don't care, I'll just write CSS. But on a large project, it's nice to, because you've sliced away this big chunk of technical debt, you no longer have CSS. It doesn't exist. I mean, you ship the Tailwind style sheet, but you don't ship anything bespoke. And I've talked with a handful of orgs over the years that say, in very limited experience, not like you've got, but a little bit, that say, we have problems with our CSS growing over time.
mhm,
And nobody deletes any CSS because I don't think anybody has a super strong understanding of what every class in there does. So you just leave it alone and they just append when you need new stuff. And then you're in that situation, like, how do we deal with our unused CSS? And it's a really hard problem. You'd like to think you could ship it through some kind of machine and it would be like, I'll tell you what your unused CSS is. It's this, this, and this. Highly unreliable. It doesn't factor in JavaScript doing all kinds of stuff on the page, third-party libraries coming in. Who knows?
yeah.
It's too complex of a problem, and that problem totally goes away if there is no CSS.
Yeah, I think it's all about who all's working on it and what's the right solution for those people,
Right.
for
Amen.
sure. So we talked about CodePen. We talked about Shop Talk, which is your podcast. You also have CSS Tricks. The final question I like to ask is, do you have anything coming up that we should be looking out for? And are there ways that the community can support you?
Yeah, oh, that's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, CodePen's always evolving, and we're doing new things. Recently, we released an editor just for Vue single file components. That was exciting to me because it's something you totally couldn't do in the CodePen editor before, and now you can, and it supports the Vue community, which is a wonderful community. I think is cool. We did the same thing for Flutter, which is a weird Google language, and Dart that requires special processing and stuff. And it's starting to feel good that we're able to like build these custom editors on CodePen for specific technologies. So if there's one like that you'd love to see, I'd love to hear about you. And if you love one of those languages, to try it on CodePen. I'm also kind of trying to write a book. Mine's a little less like, learn from my deep experience in one particular thing, but is a book that I just feel like should exist for me, which is I've been writing CSS tricks for like a long time, like over a decade by far, and I was like, how have I never written a book about CSS at all?
Yeah.
Part of the thing is so many other people have, and they've done such a great job that I don't want to write like a compendium about CSS or something. Like, I don't think I'd be the right person. I don't think that'd be that valuable. But the website is called CSS Tricks. So I thought what I could do is for once, actually write a book about actual tricks in CSS. That's been done before really wonderfully by Leah Veru, but
Yeah,
I'm going to
that's
do my own. Yeah. But it's been a bunch of years since hers, and you look back through it, and I think they all hold up pretty good, but they do have a little sense of age to them finally. So I'm like, let's do some fresh ones, but not all fresh. Some of them are ancient. And I thought I won't even publish it to paper. I'll just make it a part of the CSS Tricks website, and it'll basically be my favorite CSS Tricks as one big volume with little bite-sized chapters of my favorite tricks, and then just sell it digitally.
That's awesome. I would definitely love to see that. I mean, CSS Tricks is my go-to for anything I'm stuck on with CSS. So that's awesome.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for allowing me to pitch that a little bit. It's not super available yet, but it kind of is. It's basically at like on a fairly obvious URL on CSS Tricks, but it's not linked to anywhere, one of those kind of things. So I'd like to just have a little bit more content before I make the big release. Not to mention, it's not like the world's awesomest time to be like, give me some money. Not like that, but like, like I feel like if you had the amount of money that I'm asking for this, I don't know. I just have complex emotions about it,
Yeah, I totally get that. Well, cool. Thank you so much for joining, and to the attendees that came today, thank you so much. And thanks again.
Cheers. Thanks for listening.
Bye.